Greetings LEGO fans and welcome to Retro LEGO, where we revisit and rank the sets in beloved LEGO themes from the past. Today we slap on our uniforms and enlist in the original law enforcement arm of LEGO Space, 1989's Space Police. Ever since Blacktron busted onto the scene a few years prior, their merciless aggression against classic Space and Futuron had gone largely unchecked, but now that would change in a big way. These black, blue, and trans-red Keepers of the Peace came with their own set of game-changing tricks up their sleeve, employing clever and unique play features that rarely saw duplication, if ever. Much like Blacktron, these 6 sets also sparked a sequel sub-theme, which is a testament to the lasting impact they had on the LEGO Space universe. So, gather up your moxie and let's dive into the heroic world of Space Police. Taking the bottom spot is set number 6831, Message Decoder. Originally retailing for just $3, it's downright unfair that this had to be ranked last, because it's a fantastic little set. Unlike most of the space themes that would follow, Space Police didn't settle for a variation on the small speeder set, but instead gave us this splendid little satellite rover. Sporting the beloved classic space balloon tires at staggered heights, this little buggy is ready to decode any remote transmission that comes its way. The 2x3 slope piece emblazoned with the Space Police logo is a welcome touch, and the dual antennas on either side can be articulated for best reception while also doubling as nice railings for the driver. Speaking of the driver, here we're given our first instance of the standard Space Police officer. As was the norm in this era of LEGO Space, all of these guys throughout the whole sub-theme are identical, with the classic smiley face print of course. Their simple black and white uniform bears the original classic space logo and a diagonal zipper, and I think the utilitarian approach works well here. Unlike with Blacktron versus Blacktron 2, I can't really pick a favorite set of minifigs between the two Space Police iterations, as I like them both for different reasons. Don't let this set's place on the list fool you. It's a winner, and well worth picking up if it crosses your path. Coming in at number 5 is set number 6886, the Galactic Peacekeeper. Originally retailing for $12, this set was neck and neck with the Message Decoder, but this one just barely won out for the added play value it brings to the table. The design of this light craft is perfectly functional, but the fold-out wings on either side are pretty awkward to articulate. I don't know if they're supposed to be weapon systems or sirens, but the strange way they fold out doesn't make for the most satisfying experience, to be honest. Luckily, that's my only nitpick, as this set includes our first instance of the mobile containment pod. Keeping its prisoner concealed behind these trans-red laser bars, this travel-sized jail cell might not be the most spacious thing in the world, but the 2 bar plates on the back allow it to attach seamlessly to the back of the vehicle for easy transport. Inside the pod is one of our favorite galactic troublemakers, the all-too-familiar Blacktron astronaut. His appearance here marks the first time that a character from one LEGO Space sub-theme appeared in another. And this would carry forward with the conflict between Space Police 2 and Blacktron 2. As a vehicle, I don't think the Galactic Peacekeeper is anything particularly striking or memorable, but the story possibilities provided by the 2 minifigures and the removable containment pod do make for plenty of play potential. At number 4, we have set number 6955, Space Lockup Isolation Base. Hitting shelves at $26, this set's title might be a tongue twister, but the building itself is pretty straightforward. The base appears to be a solitary confinement facility of some sort, but I can't quite tell if the one included containment pod is meant to be understood as the only one in the facility, or if they're suggesting that there are many more down below. Either way, it seems a tad inhumane to keep prisoners locked up in these tiny pods for long periods of time. And it kinda gives me Minority Report vibes, to be honest, suggesting that the Space Police might not be as squeaky clean as we were meant to believe. In any case, the principal play feature of the set is twofold. Twisting this knob on the side will lower the containment pod into the base, while also deploying a launch pad for this small space speeder. I'm not sure it makes a whole lot of sense for these two tasks to be mechanically linked, but it does look cool while you're doing it, so there's that. The speeder itself is nothing too special, but it certainly is fun to have at least one small vehicle included in the base. Aesthetically, this base really works for me, looking austere, militaristic, and otherworldly at the same time. Looks aside, however, the function of the base falls a bit flat for me, as I would have liked to see a more full-blown police station. This, to me, feels more like a remote outpost on the outskirts of Space Police jurisdiction, which is cool in its own right, but the potential for something much grander never really leaves my mind. To staff this facility, we're given 2 Space Police officers this time, tasked with watching over the one included Blacktron rogue. The set overall is a mixed bag for me, really aligning with my aesthetic taste while lacking a bit in substance. I'd like to give a huge thanks to my channel members for helping this series continue to grow. If you enjoy retro LEGO and want to support the further creation of the series, please consider joining my membership program, the Brick Guild. Perks include behind-the-scenes sneak peeks, member-only polls, and early access to new episodes. Click the join button under this video or the link in the description for more information. Rolling in at number 3 is set number 6895, the Spy Track 1. Originally selling for $15 US, this chunky off-roader is ready to hit just about any unpredictable terrain the Final Frontier has to offer. The rear of this vehicle houses another containment pod, also concealing a Blacktron criminal, which attaches and detaches in the same way. The trans-red cockpit, though oddly not enclosed on the bottom, creates a commanding yet aesthetically pleasing front for the build. However, the center is where the fun really begins. Pushing down on either side of this central rocker activates a 4-wheel steering system, making the enormous tires turn with a surprisingly tight radius. Though somewhat similar to steering systems that existed on many other sets of the era, this might just be the easiest to manipulate, and thus the most practical and fun to use. We're once again given a single Space Police officer and criminal, and though the story possibilities are very similar to other sets in the series, the vehicle itself is a huge upgrade. The runner-up is set number 6986, the Mission Commander. Originally retailing for $50 US, this is the Space Police battlecruiser that I'm sure had all the late 80s kids pining after it in the catalogs. It's a cool, muscly, and feature-filled build, but I'm not sure its overall design speaks to me quite as much as many other flagships of its era. It certainly leaves a lot of holes, particularly in the middle section, making it feel to me like the bones of a great ship, but not the finished product. However, the play features it packs on board are pretty excellent across the board. Starting in the front, this might just be the most unique LEGO space cockpit I've seen, as the entire pilot seat and console assembly can eject as its own separate rover vehicle. Turning this rounded brick in the center will engage a Technic rack system that raises the cockpit while also lowering the rover's ramp. The reverse is done just as easily, and seeing the ship take the rover back in is peak play feature satisfaction. Just about every flagship has a deployable rover, but integrating it into the cockpit itself is pretty ingenious. In the rear of the vessel is a large, removable prisoner barracks. Lifting these wing assemblies up and outward frees the whole unit to be removed, making it an entire mobile jail of sorts. Opening the large back hatch reveals a small hallway leading to the cells. 2 of the familiar containment pods are attached on either side and can be removed and replaced using the same method we've seen in other sets. Strangely enough, this feels like a more complete jail than we got in the Lockup isolation base, and it looks great. Even though I don't love the aesthetics of the whole ship, I've got to admit that it probably has some of the best and most playable interior spaces of any large-scale LEGO spaceship. But the fun doesn't stop there. 2 hatches open up on either side of the spacecraft to allow these little microfighters to deploy. This is similar to what we saw with the Blacktron Renegade, but unlike that set, these fighters are much easier to separate and reattach to the ship. The sheer size of the ship calls for 2 Space Police officers this time, but still only 1 Blacktron prisoner. I kinda wish they had included 2 of each, but leaving 1 empty cell does suggest that the chase is still on. Though my initial impression of the ship, based on looks alone, is not the best, doing a little digging beneath the surface reveals a unique, mechanically sound, and hugely enjoyable Space Police flagship. And at number 1 is set number 6781, the SP Striker. Selling for $28 back in 1989, this, to me, is the definitive Space Police cruiser. When I imagine a fleet of Space Police vehicles, this is easily the one I picture in my mind. The sleek, well-armed vessel features a rear-mounted containment pod like most of its counterparts, but it also houses my favorite play feature in the whole sub-theme, the pulsating siren lights. Through the use of a 9-volt battery box and some conductive plates, this feature not only lights up the red beacons on the top, but also the computer console in the rear of the cockpit, adding so much to the futuristic sci-fi feel of the set. The entire module containing the electronics can be easily slid out from the ship by lowering these 2 tabs, and putting it back in is just as smooth. The huge 2-piece cockpit is spacious and provides plenty of room and hardware for the one included Space Police officer. His counterpart sits quietly defeated in the back as this stylish cruiser takes him to face justice. When ranking my number 1 in any series, I usually try to think of the one set I would get if I could only have one. And for Space Police, this is that one. It may be small and simple, but its design and primary play feature really knock it out of the park. But I'm sure you have your own opinions about this list. Shout them out in the comments below. And for more retrospectives on LEGO Space, click on the playlist on your screen. And until next time, stay out of trouble.